Hey everyone, welcome to the first video in our Welcome Back to Work, Welcome Back to the School Year video series that we put together every year. First topic right out of the gate is going to be one of everyone's favorites. We're going to talk about parent and student handbook changes. Woohoo, right? Fortunately, there's not a lot of changes this year, so there's not a ton to go through. I'm not going to go through each and every single one line by line. You can look at the change document that comes out with the handbook and investigate those most yourself. I'm instead going to focus on the ones that are most relevant to us as middle school teachers or to our middle school students and so forth, so that you can be prepared for what's going to be a little bit different this year. The first item that's worth discussing, we're going to start taking a stronger look at students who have a habit of leaving school early. You certainly know and have experienced, a particular student in your class. It seems like every other day of the school year, their parent comes and picks them up 10-15 minutes prior to the end of the school day. Right? You get the phone call from the office. Hey, can you send, little Johnny, little Susie home? And you've got to stop your teaching. You've got to go to the phone, right? They've got to pack up their stuff, right? And it creates this big disruption at the end of the day when you're just trying to finish and get your class done, right? And sometimes it's a pretty critical point in time in your lesson that you're delivering. So we're seeking to curb that behavior. It obviously creates a lot of problems for Ms. Hudson up at the front desk as well. A rush of people who come to school right at the very end of the school day to unnecessarily pick their kids up just to bypass the car line and try and get home a little more quickly. So what we're doing to focus in on decreasing that behavior is we're going to start coding students who go home early as tardy to school. No, they're not tardy. It is a misuse of the word, but we needed to pick something, a language and a code that worked with our existing computer system and everything. And so tardy to school it is. So for this year, with middle school students, anybody who's being checked out, either at the last period of the day or during homeroom before 3:05, before the 3:05 dismissal, is going to get coded as tardy to school in the computer. And then we'll run reports just like we do with tardy to school in the morning when we start to see, a high degree of frequency at 5, 7, and 10 of students going home early. There'll be communications with parents to say, we need you to curb this behavior so that we don't have to implement more severe consequences. Okay, so pretty simple one there. The next topic that I'm going to talk about, I think, is going to be a good woohoo for all of you as faculty. A lot of the change that was put in place was to make your workload a little easier and a little bit lighter. So that's always a good thing, I would say. And it deals with our extracurricular activities and policy for participating. I want to start out by saying we often refer to this policy as athletic eligibility. It does have a broader scope than that. It is all extracurricular activities. So athletics is always the primary one, but it includes other extracurricular activities such as participation in drama, participation in drumline, right? If there is, an after school art club or something like that that's meeting, that would be included in these policies as well. Okay, now what's not changing is the metric for determining who is ineligible, right? We have two standards in place, and those will continue to be the same, right? Any student who has 3 or more D's is ineligible for extracurricular activities, or any student who has at least 1 F is ineligible for extracurricular participation, right? So those are kind of the two points. You might have a student who has 2 D's, no F's, they can continue to participate. As soon as they get 3 D's, right, they're not able to participate in extracurricular activities. 2 D's and an F, because of the F, automatically makes them ineligible, even though they only have 2 D's. So any combination of those things makes students ineligible, and will continue to do so. The big change is in the previous couple years, We've relied on a manual self-reporting process. Those of you who are returning teachers are familiar with the spreadsheet we would email to you every few weeks. You'd have to go through your grade book, find all the students with D's, find all the students with F's, put their name, their class, their grade into the spreadsheet. And that was a time-consuming manual process for all of you to have to participate in. To be honest, it was a time-consuming and manual process for us as administrators as well. Then we'd have to go and sort the data and find all the instances of the same student in the spreadsheet and whatnot. We have this great thing called technology, so let's use it, right? We can run reports that tell us who has D's. We can run reports that tell us who has F's. And so that's how we're going to start reporting grades. We're going to take that manual lift off of you so that you don't have to do anything with reporting students as being eligible or ineligible this year. Okay, so that's a good thing. What does change is the frequency with which we are doing those grade checks. A common problem we run into, it happens at the start of the school year, it happens when we return from Christmas break, and it happens when we start a brand new quarter, right? Because we were checking grades every 3 weeks, when we were in the first 3 weeks of a school year or a quarter, a lot of times there weren't enough grades to really feel like we were legitimate in putting a student onto probation for participating in their extracurricular activities. And so it wasn't uncommon that we were just giving students a pass on the first 3 weeks. It was kind of on a case-by-case scenario, but a good number of students were frequently being given a pass on that first check. If it's not a valid check, why continue to do it? So what we're going to do here forward is we're going to do our grade checks at the progress report, which is halfway through the quarter, and at the report card, right at the end of the quarter. Feeling like these are two time periods when students have been really conscientious about getting their grades in, making up their work, because they know those report cards and progress reports are going home and they want those to look good. So hopefully missing work and things like that is minimized by the students' effort on that end. But it's also a time period when you as teachers have your grade books in their most accurate and most up-to-date state, right? Earlier in the quarter, you might have given a test and just not had a chance to get the grade in. But when progress reports and report cards are coming up, obviously you're working harder to make sure that those grades are in and up to date. And so it feels like a time period when we can feel confident that what we're pulling reports on is a pretty good representation of how the student is performing. The thing that's going to be really important for you to understand as teachers, because you're going to get emails from parents wanting to know, can my student play? Can my student participate? And you're going to need to know the difference between the way these two time periods work, because they do not function the same way. So let's start with students who become ineligible at progress report time, which is halfway through the quarter, right? We're halfway into the quarter, 4 or 5 weeks in. We run the report as an administrator. We find a student who has 3 Ds. I notify the parents that their student's ineligible to play. We notify the students. We know the athletic department who passes that on to the coaches, right? So immediately the question that starts to churn is how long? How long am I not able to play? And so for the half quarter mark at progress reports, the answer is you cannot play until such a time that you bring your grades up so that you no longer have those 3 Ds, or you bring your grades up to so that you no longer have an F in any of your classes. As soon as that happens, you then become automatically eligible to continue to participate in extracurricular activities, right? So we may notify the parent on Monday, you're not eligible to play. The student might get on that lickety-split, fix the failing grade before they even go home at the end of the school day on Monday. We can run the report and say, you're right, you no longer have 3 Ds, you no longer have an F, you can go ahead and continue participating, right? So that's the half quarter mark. The grade checks that happen at report cards again, function differently. Because report cards signify students have actually failed an entire quarter, right? That's a much more serious condition, right? Um, there's a lot of legitimate reasons kids have D's and F's halfway through the quarter. I've been sick for 2 weeks. I haven't turned in anything, and that's why I have 3 D's, because I'm behind in my work, but I'm still in my makeup period. I'm going to get everything turned in the next couple few days, and those grades are going to come up, and I can participate, right? Those things are normal and happen. But when you get to a report card, 3Ds means, wow, we really just blew it that quarter, right? An F. We just didn't pull it together that quarter. So when that happens, students are actually going to be unable to participate in activities for the entire first half of the next quarter until the new progress reports come out, right? Cannot participate for the entire first half of the quarter. When progress reports come out, now this part starts to sound familiar. If they no longer have 3Ds, if they no longer have an F, then they automatically become eligible to play again. If they still have 3Ds, if they still have an F, then for the second half of the quarter, the progress report policy then takes place, becomes in effect, right? If they get those D's and F's fixed, then as soon as that happens, they can become eligible to participate again. That's probably a lot to discuss through a video. One of the disadvantages of delivering this information this way is we don't get to ask questions. So please, right, if you have questions about that, write it down on your notebook. Come to back to school week, and please feel free to ask some of your questions when we get back to our faculty meetings during back to school week. But at least we've saved the time, delivering the information, and we can just use our time productively to ask questions when we're all meeting together. Okay. The final policy change that was put into place with the handbook, we experienced, I wouldn't say it's an abundance. It was probably 3, maybe 4 parents this past school year who just seemed like they were intentionally working against the policies of the school, targeting teachers, getting constantly complaining to other parents, kind of ginning up other families within a grade to be, issuing complaints against teachers, or maybe they were frequently responsible for not getting their kids to school on time, picking them up early, not being supportive of homework policies, right? Parents who just seem to be combative about everything we were asking their student to do. And so the change that's gone into place in the parent-student handbook is some language that says parents also need to be in harmony with school policy, right? And so when parents are out of harmony with school policy, we have the ability to release students from enrollment at the school, right? And so that's to just give us a little backing for what we were really already doing, but to just be able to say, look, it is in the handbook, right? Mom, Dad, if you're not going to support us on, the behavior problems we're experiencing, with the attendance problems we're experiencing, if you're going to continue to be, a negative influence about the school, towards the school, then we'll ask you to unenroll. And so that wraps up all of the changes that are relevant to middle school students. I will throw in just one real quick change to high school students. It's interesting enough that I think it's at least worth you guys knowing about. And that is to say that we are removing the right or limiting the right for 9th graders to drive to campus this year, right? There'll be no parking privileges for the freshmen. This is due to increased enrollment, lack of parking spaces for all the students and faculty that are on campus. And so for this school year, the freshmen will not be allowed to drive and park on campus. That right will be limited to just the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Okay. Thank you for your time to listen. I hope this was informative. Again, if you have any questions, write them down, and don't be afraid to ask when we get back to our faculty meetings. Have a great day.